Lisa Gumieniuk is a vibrant and passionate self-care and self-healing coach. However, this was not always the case. Many years ago, she suffered a whole host of illnesses that ranged from glandular fever all the way to Lyme disease. But one day, she saw a documentary called Food Matters, and she soon realized that she needed to get a deeper perspective and understanding on health and healing. The rest, as they say, well, it's history. But I'm not going to make you wait any longer to hear her story. Let's dive in. Lisa, welcome to the JAK'ed podcast. It is so good to have you here.
Thanks, John. I'm so excited to be here today.
I've been waiting. We were actually supposed to do this once before, and I had to reschedule, and I was really bummed because I was really looking forward to talking to you because the topic that you bring to the show today is one that's extremely important to me, and I know it is to a lot of my listeners as well. So with that being said, you spent a number of years in the corporate world as a project manager, but now you're actually pretty much an expert in relieving stress and anxiety and stuff like that and helping other people do it too. So if you would, can you just kind of tell the audience how you transitioned from the corporate world into what you're doing now?
Yeah, absolutely. Really good question, and thank you for asking, because I think it's really important that people share their stories so that people know that there's, if they're going through something similar, that there is hope and there are other ways about, becoming well. And I often talk about the concept of like chaos to clarity, and whatever that chaos is for people, it might be, emotional, mental, or physical chaos, and people want, clarity and peace and well-being from that. And I was definitely one of those people. So back in 2013, as you've mentioned, I was in a corporate role, project management, business improvement. I had a lovely team of people. I really, really enjoyed what I was doing. There's a number of buts in there. I had quite an intense year in 2013 with a number of different things happening. And it ended up with me being really, really sick. So I thought I was on top of the world. I thought I was invincible. I was winning various awards at work, performing on my roles. I was marrying the man of my dreams who I'd been with for a number of years, so my now husband. But I was also depleting myself. I wasn't eating properly, so I wasn't getting the right fuel. I didn't know how to process my emotions. I had at the stage about 31, 32 years of, suppressing my emotions and not knowing how to process them. I was worried about things all the time. I was stressed about things all the time, and I was anxious all the time. And my body just literally hit rock bottom. I remember my energy levels started to deplete, and I was doing really high intensity exercise in boot camp, about 10 hours of intense exercise every week. And then people started to overtake me in sort of boot camp and exercise. And I'm like, what's going on? I just don't feel like I have any power. And I was losing power. And then a few weeks later, I was unable to read a 2-line email at work. I could physically read the words, but they weren't sinking into my brain. I thought there is something seriously wrong here. So then I went down this very, very big and long journey of chronic illness, glandular fever, shingles, Lyme disease, 2 autoimmune diseases, heavy metal toxicity.
Wow.
So a lot of, there's a big wow in there, John. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's man, it's just people don't realize, and this is one of the main reasons I wanted to have you on the show. When you have stress that you're not dealing with. Now all of us have some sort of stress in our life, and stress is a normal part of life. How we deal with it is what makes or breaks us. When you break it down to a biological level, when you're under a lot of stress, your body's releasing more cortisol and things of that nature. Cortisol has an effect that actually causes you to store more body fat. There's so many things that are interconnected within the body, and stress and anxiety and frustration and anger and all these things play a part on it as well. You can live a healthy life as far as you can exercise and you can eat right and all that stuff, but there's more pieces to the puzzle than just that.
Yeah, absolutely. As you said, cortisol and our stress hormones and the amount of
Mm-hmm.
stress that we're under and the way that we process stress is underestimated, the impact that that has on us and our bodies. Because I was reading a paper the other week that the CDC, the Centre for Digestive Disease Control in America,
Mm-hmm.
had one of their studies indicated that stress is responsible for 90% of diseases.
Mm-hmm.
90% of diseases, the underlying cause is stress. And then Dr. Bruce Lipton, I think I can't remember if it's 90, he believes through his research and studies that it's 95 or 98%. Um, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm coughing to indicate that that is, a, what was this? A really, really key point. So disease plays a really important role in our health that we often underestimate and undervalue and underappreciate and recognize. And I didn't know that that was a real foundation for me, because when
Mm-hmm.
I got sick, I wasn't able to handle what was happening to my physical body, my mental body. You know, I couldn't process things. I couldn't read things. I couldn't write. I couldn't read a chapter in a book. I could read small things occasionally, like,
Mm-hmm.
Facebook posts and things. But anything of a
Right.
paragraph or more, I couldn't process it. So all of these things were happening to me in my body, and it was causing a lot more stress and a lot more anxiety. And so that
Mm-hmm.
fuels what's going on. Now,
Sure.
also the importance of stress also, it plays a major role on the immune system.
Mm-hmm.
And so here I am trying to recover from chronic illness and all these different pathogens, and my
Mm-hmm.
immune system isn't supported, because yes, I am
Right.
under the physical stress of the illness, but I have that
Mm-hmm.
emotional, the energetic, spiritual mindset stress as well that I was under.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so, you asked me, why am I, or what am I doing now? And so I've gone on this massive journey. It's about 7 years, obviously, from 2013 now. And
Mm-hmm.
so I've looked at things completely differently. Yes, I do
Right.
a lot, and it's so important to do those foundational things, like what food are we
Mm-hmm.
eating? What nutrients are we putting in? What fuel are we putting into our body? Because take our cars, for example. If we put the wrong fuel in our cars, like a friend of mine actually did, they were 3 hours outside of Sydney, filled up the tank to drive back
Oh.
from Canberra, the centre of the capital of Australia, back to Sydney. And literally about
Mm-hmm.
500 metres up the road, the car conked out.
Yeah.
And so, what we don't realize is, food for us is our fuel, and we're not
Mm-hmm.
putting the right fuel in it. Our bodies can go a lot longer without the right fuel than cars can, but it's such a good
Yeah.
example.
Mm-hmm.
And I know how
Yeah. I
passionate you
agree.
are about fuel, John.
Just a little bit, just a little bit. But I something else that we haven't touched on too, that stress directly affects, is inflammation. The reason
Mhm.
that study states that stress is, the underlying cause to so many diseases, is because stress causes inflammation in the body. Inflammation is the cause for most diseases. Period. I mean, it's what actually it's what applies the disease, so to speak. Okay, you may
Mm.
have it, but it's like if you pull a muscle, when you have swelling and redness and stuff like that from pulling a muscle, that's not from the actual metabolic damage of the cells itself. It's the inflammation that your body builds around the injured area in an effort to protect it, but it winds up being a detriment if the inflammation isn't dealt with. So, in terms of the relationship between stress and inflammation, if you
Mm.
don't have decent ways to manage your stress, obviously your inflammation is going to be out of whack too. But so now let me ask you, what are some of the best ways that people can, tips or tricks or whatever, that they can utilize on a daily basis to try to help relieve some stress?
Yeah, such a good question, John. And there are so many, tools and tricks and techniques that people
Mm-hmm.
can use to help and support themselves.
Right.
I have a few favorites and a few unique favorites. There's breath work, there's mindfulness, there's meditation, but I love things that go a little bit above and beyond. And so, actually, one thing that you asked me earlier is, what is it that I do? What is it that I do, and how is it that I am where I am today? So, we've spoken a
Mm-hmm.
bit about my journey, but I also, I went in search of so many tools and techniques for myself
Mm-hmm.
because I just wasn't getting better. I was doing the medications and the herbals and the food side of things, but my health still wasn't improving. So I needed to look above and beyond. And I've done a lot
Right.
of research. So, I'm a nutritionist. I've studied
Mm-hmm.
psychoneuroimmunology, which is the science behind relaxation techniques and the immune system, the endocrine, and the nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
NLP, neuro linguistic programming, EFT, emotional freedom technique, energetic health and healing, Reiki, a lot of that energetic stuff. So I like to
Mm-hmm.
incorporate all of that. I think it's all important that the tools and techniques and things that people look at, I think it's really important to ensure that they are looking at those things from an emotional, from a mental, from a physical, and from a spiritual perspective. So,
Mm-hmm.
one of the techniques that I like, actually, I love, is something called EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique. Is
Okay.
that something that you've heard of, John?
No, I can't say that I have, but I'm sure I'm going to hear about it right now, and I can't wait.
Awesome, awesome. So EFT is, and a lot of people haven't heard about it, but it's growing in momentum because it's so
Mm-hmm.
powerful. It's evidence based. There are over 140 clinical trials to help and support the efficacy of EFT. It's also known as
Mm-hmm.
tapping. So what happens is tapping is just that, where you tap on yourself on different parts of the
Mm-hmm.
body. So we've known for over 5,000 years that there are these energy lines that run through our body called meridians.
Right.
And there's acupuncture works on meridians and energy lines in the body. So a lot of people have had acupuncture where they put needles into their body, or practitioners put needles in to help
Right.
stimulate different meridians, and it helps in a
Mm-hmm.
number of different ways. And so emotional freedom techniques uses the concept of these meridians and energy lines and the acupuncture points, these particular points on the body, to start to get energy moving and flowing in the body. Now,
Hmm.
it also uh, it also impacts the limbic system in the brain, and so the limbic system in the brain is where the emotional center is. And so when we
Right.
get stressed or overwhelmed, or we have an emotion, or even if we have a pain, then we can use
Mm-hmm.
this technique to reduce that. It is
Mm.
absolutely amazing. Now, I'm actually putting you on the spot, John, because I didn't ask you earlier. Are you open to doing a little round of tapping and a little experience?
Um, Sure, I'm open to anything. I actually I did a podcast episode with a gentleman who does energy healings on people and their
Uh,
pets. And yeah, and I thought it was pretty amazing, and he did like this I forget what it was, an adjustment or something he called it. I don't remember exactly, but we were discussing the fact that last year I had a knee replacement, and I had been a little overactive that day, and I was having some knee pain, and he was going through all this stuff, and it was really, really intriguing. So no, absolutely, I'm all for it.
Awesome, awesome. And it's a really, really gentle process, and the listeners and the audience can take part as well, but not while you're driving or using heavy machinery. So just find a nice,
Okay.
quiet spot. So what I'll do
Mm-hmm.
is the first thing is I'll talk through for everybody the acupuncture points on the body, and it's really, really easy. So the first acupuncture point is on the side of the hand. So where your little finger is, it's just on the side there, and it's like a
Mm-hmm.
karate chop. So we call it the karate chop
Okay.
point. Beautiful, Johnny. Yeah,
So
that's
just like right
perfect.
there. I'm trying to
Yeah,
find the
right
right
there.
camera angle here. Okay.
Perfect. And so when we tap, we use at least two fingers. And it
Okay.
doesn't matter what side of the hand you use. So this is called the karate chop point. It's beautiful. Then we
All
go
right.
and we tap on the top of the head, right on the crown of the
Okay.
head. Perfect. And it's not very hard, it's just nice and light. Then the next
Okay.
point is on the inside of the eyebrow, so just above the
Okay.
nose.
All right.
And generally, you pick one eyebrow. So it's just on the inside of one eyebrow. Yeah, lovely. And then we're going to go to the outside of the eye and tap on that point, which is the bony bit on the outside of the eye. A little bit further down, John. Lovely.
Okay.
Then we're going to go under the eye, on the bony bit under the eye. And then under the nose. Then the crease of the chin. So just under the lip there. So it's not on the chin, it's just in the middle there. Beautiful. And then the next one is the collarbone. So where your collarbone is, and you feel the little round bit just under your neck there. So go
Right.
down 1 inch and off to the side.
Okay.
Excellent. And so you can tap with one hand there. Lovely. And then the last point is under the arm. So it's not in the armpit, it's on the side of the body, under the armpit, generally in line with the breast.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a great way of doing it, John. Perfect. And then we breathe in and breathe out.
Feels pretty good.
So they are the tapping points. Now, what happens is, if you're stressed or anxious, or, you're in a certain level of pain in relation to something, if something's coming up for you in your life, then what you can do is rate that on a scale of 0 to 10. So
Okay.
think about something that's happening for you right now, John, and think about, something that's not overly, not overly serious. Because we don't want to bring up, too much, we don't want to bring to the surface and process something that might need further support. But think of something that might be causing you a little bit of stress now.
Okay.
And I won't ask you to share that with me, but I will ask you to let me know on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being neutral and 10 being really distressed, where would it fit on that scale for you?
Okay. I think a point of stress that I deal with on a regular basis is, since I've made the pivot and tried to make this what I do now, as far as the nutrition business and all that, try to make that my career.
Yeah.
It all stems from the fact that, because I'm getting older and I can't work the types of jobs I used to,
Yeah.
I find that it's really stressful for me to try to make this successful so I can support my family on it, rather than having to go back to a factory job working 16 hours a day, running around, and never being able to see my wife and kids.
Yeah. And so on a scale of 0 to 10, how distressed do you feel by that thought when you think about it right now?
Right now, about a 6.
About a 6. Okay. And is there a particular emotion that comes up for you when you think about that?
Well, I don't really know how to. I don't know what emotion to tie it to. It's. I feel like if I can't make it happen, then I'm failing everybody, that I'm letting them down. So I don't know
Yeah.
what particular
Okay.
emotion I would tie that to.
Yeah. Is it like stress, anxiety, fear of it not succeeding?
T- fear, fear. Yeah,
Fear.
because
Yeah. And thank you for sharing.
because I'm getting older. Yeah, I'm getting older, and I'm like, I can't work 60, 70 hours a week at a physical job like I used to be able to do. I mean, I'm 53 years
Yeah.
old, so it's time for me to work smarter, not harder. That's what I tell people all the time, and
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, and thank you for sharing, because your listeners, fear is something that comes up in so many people, and it's great that you're able to share this. That this is an experience that a lot of us go through. There's two sides. There's
Mhm.
fear and there's love. So let's see if we can
Yeah.
get you a little bit closer to that love side and a little bit further away from that
Hmm.
fear side. So thinking about this, this 6 out of 10 feeling that you might be failing and the fear of failure in creating this,
Hmm.
new venture.
Hmm.
Is there somewhere that you feel it in your body when you think about it?
Um, Probably like right up the back of my neck.
Neck,
I have a
yeah.
it's yeah, it's like it's almost like I get tension headaches sometimes when I'm stressed about it.
Yeah. And is there a particular color that comes to mind when you think about it?
Mm, not that I can put to it. Thinking about it now, um, I would say probably red, which I would think would
Red.
associate to anger, but yeah.
And is that red a light red, a dark red? Does it have a texture or a shape associated with it?
Not really a texture or shape, but it's bright. It's a bright
It's,
red, almost an orangish type red. Yeah.
and how big is it when you imagine it? Or
Um,
small?
it's when I imagine it and when it's really bothering me, it's all I can see.
It's all you can see,
Pretty much.
yeah. And
Yeah,
so
it's pretty big.
these Yeah, and so these questions are really, really powerful as a self assessment, as a body assessment for people to understand deeper layers and levels of what's happening for them and where they're at with things. And
Hmm.
then, so that is, on a scale of 0 to 10, how distressed are you feeling? What emotion is coming up for you? Where is it that you feel
Hmm.
it in the body? Is there a color associated with it? Is there a texture? Is there a shape? How big is it?
Hmm.
And then you can use that information with this tapping exercise to help diminish it. Are you open to
Okay.
doing that, John?
Sure.
Okay, let's go. So, we're going to go through those tapping rounds. And what's going to happen is I'm going to say some statements. We're all going to tap
Hmm.
together, and then you're going to repeat those statements and those phrases.
Okay.
So, we're going to take our karate chop point and
Hmm.
tap on our karate chop point and say, even though
Even though
I have this fear of failure
I have this fear of failure
and I feel it in my neck,
and I feel it in my neck,
and it's a 6 out of 10.
it's a 6 out of 10.
I'm asking my body to release this now.
I'm asking my body to release this now.
It's safe to release this now,
It's safe to release this now.
even though
Even though
I have this fear of failure in my body
I have this fear of failure in my body
and I feel it in the back of my neck
and I feel it in the back of my neck
and it's red in color.
and it's red in color.
It's safe to release this now.
It's safe to release this now.
And I'm asking my body to help and support me.
And I'm asking my body and help to support me.
And we'll do this one more time, even though
And even though
I have this fear of failure
I have this fear of failure
and I feel it in the back of my neck
and I feel it in the back of my neck
and it's red in color,
and it's red in color,
I'm asking my body to support me to release this now.
I'm asking my body to support me to release this now.
And then we go to tapping on the top of the head. Fear of
Okay.
failure.
Fear of failure,
Inside the eye, fear and failure.
fear of failure,
Tapping on the outside of the eye, fear and failure.
fear and failure,
Under the eye, fear and failure.
fear and failure,
Under the nose, fear and failure.
fear and failure,
Tapping on the chin, fear and failure.
Fear and failure.
Tapping on the collarbone, fear and failure.
Fear and failure.
And then tapping under the arm, fear and failure.
Fear and failure.
And we stop tapping and we take a deep breath in and a deep breath out.
I'm pretty relaxed right now. We probably shouldn't have done this during the podcast. I'm ready to go to sleep.
It's so amazing how many times people say that, and because it affects the nervous system, as I said, the limbic system, it calms the body down.
Yep. I can totally see that. Okay, so obviously that is a very powerful way to go about doing it. But what about for like when you're in situations where you need something like really quick? What are some techniques we can do to derail stress and its effects? Like if in the heat of battle, so to speak.
Yeah. So taking on the concept of tapping, which we've just done, is to actually tap on potentially one of two spots. So one might be that karate chop point, because it's really great that you can hide it either behind your back or under a table if you're in a business meeting. Or the other one is tapping on the collarbone. And so I've had clients who have been having panic attacks. They're in the throes of a panic attack. It's just getting started. And they're like, oh, I've learnt this tapping thing. I'm just going to give it a go because I'm just about to spiral completely out of control with this panic attack. And within moments, it's dissipated. And they've gone back to their meetings or whatever it is that they were doing as if nothing had happened. It is absolutely amazing.
It sure sounds like it. So now let me ask you, let me back up just a little bit. When you were dealing with your chronic illnesses, how did you stumble across using techniques to help relieve stress and anxiety? And how did you come across those as a way to help you in your transition through that time?
Yeah, so I came across them because I was so desperate. I was so sick. As I said, I was trying all of these things and I wasn't getting the results. So I had to look outside of the box, outside of the square. And then I can't remember how I came across EFT, for example. But I also remember watching the documentary called Heal on Netflix. And there was a little episode in there where, a little section in there where someone went through some rounds of tapping. And I'm like, oh, that's quite interesting. Because what I realized is that, as I keep saying, we're made up of our, we're not just our physical body, we're that energetic, emotional body and spiritual body as well. And so I wasn't focusing on those layers and I didn't know how. So EFT is really good for processing emotions, and I didn't know how to process my emotions. I would just keep suppressing them. I was numb to them all, and I just kept pushing them down. And I had some practitioners say to me at one stage, Lisa, I think you need to do some emotional work. And I'm like, emotional work? I can talk to people. I've got people in my community who I can talk to, but I need solutions above and beyond talking. And so that's when I sort of went in investigating, because I didn't want to talk to practitioners who were just about talking. But, EFT, for example, the neuroplasticity is not just about talking. And I'm not sure about your experience just now, John, but, it might be possible that you're, 6 out of 10 and that feeling of fear has been reduced. And, maybe that redness and that orange color, and it was really big, maybe it's a lot smaller for you. So the body works in a number of different ways. It doesn't work just from, our cognitive mind and, the physical things. It really is about releasing a lot of, I guess, they're trapped emotions. I had all these things stored within my body for so long. And ultimately, it's trauma. I was also involved in a car accident, actually, at the time that I was getting sick.
Ooh.
And so, I kind of just sort of moved on from that, but it was actually stored in my body and stored in my nervous system. And this comes down to nervous system research and research on trauma. And you mentioned stress, and little things can end up being traumas within our
Yes,
body. That constant
absolutely.
ding, ding, ding of our mobile phones going off, Facebook notifications on our phones, on our computers. That's constantly shocking the body and putting it into that fight, flight, freeze mode.
Right.
And that is fight, flight, freeze is comes from us running from, well, not running from, but when we see a tiger, what do? We stay and we fight the tiger,
Yeah, or we watch
initial
the next,
response.
episode of Tiger King on Netflix. One of the two.
I did watch an episode last week.
I said I would never watch it, and I watched one episode just to see what it was all about, and I binge watched the whole doggone thing. But no, but I don't want to get too far off in the weeds. But I really agree with what you're saying. So many things within the body are connected. It's like you're talking about the tapping and how you're basically manipulating the energy pathways, and you drew the correlation between that and acupuncture. When you look at it from a biological level, it's you're talking about basically stimulating nerves is what you're doing, and nerves are like the wiring system of the body. They're the ones that transmit all the energy impulses. So if you have blockages along those lines for whatever reason, I can see where the tapping would be very beneficial, and just as a way to kind of release those blockages and allow free flowing energy to go through. And I think that's really really cool. But I want to ask you about something else because you touched on it a bit a little while ago. Neurolinguistic programming. Now, one of my favorite all-time mentors is Tony Robbins, and he is really, really big in neurolinguistic programming. Um, can you explain to the audience, because I don't really think I've ever done an episode on it, but I think they would get some value out of knowing what neurolinguistic programming is. Could you explain to them a little bit about how that works?
Yeah, so like neuro relates to like the brain and the neurons. Linguistic is language, and programming. And so what happens is we create these often, or we have a thought, and then that thought gets stronger and stronger and becomes a belief. And then those beliefs then get more ingrained in the body, and we have emotions and feelings associated with those. Then we we have certain actions and behaviors that result in certain outcomes. Now what happens is when we go through that loop, and because we often have the same result when we're thinking certain thoughts, and then we have these beliefs, we have these emotions, we take these actions, and then we have the same outcomes, we go round and round in this loop. And so when we're talking about the brain, there's this phrase that neurons that fire together wire together. So what
Mm-hmm.
that means is, say for example, with me, I've been chronically unwell for 5 years, and I'm in this pattern, and I'm waking up the same person every day. I'm feeling unwell. I don't know how to get out of this, and I'm stuck. And so the communication that I'm saying to my body is like, I'm stuck. I don't know how to get out of this. I have Lyme disease. I have shingles. I have glandular fever. And this is
Mm-hmm.
what my body is hearing. And so it gets those thoughts then become a belief that I don't believe that I can get well. Or, I believe that I'm stressed and anxious and that I'm going to have to live like this forever. I believe that I can't
Mm-hmm.
change. But that's actually not true. So, what neurolinguistic programming does is it helps to change the language in the body, change
Mm-hmm.
the language in the brain, and
Right.
ultimately reprogram it so that there's a different belief and a different story. So, my husband, for example, would say to me, Lisa, you just need to believe that you're well. And every time he said that, my whole body would get really, really tense. And there was such a
Mm-hmm.
like a disconnect within my body. I had this belief that I didn't believe I could be well. And every time I said, I believe I'm well, I believe I'm well, I could actually feel my body getting more and more tense, because that's where my
Right.
energy was going and flowing. So I needed to
Mm-hmm.
use techniques like EFT and NLP combined to help
Mm-hmm.
reprogram those stories that were in my brain. And ultimately, it's reprogramming our cells so they're through our whole body, so they're communicating and saying, actually, this belief that I had, and there were some stories associated with it, actually, they're not
Mm-hmm.
true.
Right. Yeah. It kind of reminds me of the old quote by Henry Ford. It says, whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right. And that's exactly
Yes.
true. We have the ability to, for our minds can manipulate things in ways that we don't even understand yet. They're getting into some of the other people that I like to follow and listen to are people like Tim Ferriss, who is like a biohacker extraordinaire. This guy is like he I can't even remember all the stuff that he's done, but it's like he learned how to play piano in a week, and he's like a concert pianist now. He finds ways to tell his brain, look, this is what we're gonna do. This doesn't exist anymore. This is the direction we're going, and he makes it happen.
Yeah, and it's a really good point, because EFT and NLP are
Mm-hmm.
biohacking tools, because it's about
Yeah.
changing the body, and
Mm-hmm.
they're wonderful tools for doing that. And
Yeah.
and from an
Yeah.
emotional perspective and a
Mm-hmm.
mindset, and also physical perspective, because if you've got physical pain, you can transform and
Mm-hmm.
shift that physical pain as well.
Right. Yeah. I actually experienced that myself. Went for about 8 months last year with my right knee bone on bone. I couldn't be on my feet for more than an hour at a time unless I wanted my knee to swell up to the size of a watermelon and just be in excruciating pain. And I still managed to go to the gym as much as possible and things like that. I just told myself that yes, this is something that I have going on right now, but I'm not going to let it stop me. I'm going to find ways to keep going, because with me being a type 2 diabetic and things like that, I need to make sure that I stay as active as possible. That and I'm no spring chicken. I'm getting older. So but it's
Young at
like I
heart, John,
just
young at heart.
yeah, oh, absolutely, absolutely. But it's like I literally just said, look, these are the things that I need to make happen. This is the physical shortcoming that I have. I'm going to find a way to move past this, and that's exactly what I did.
And I think also for your listeners, there's, as we said, there's different tools and techniques and modalities, and there's so much available for people these
Mm-hmm.
days. And it's great to know that there is hope and there are other ways. I thought that I was stuck. I didn't think that. Oh, and I actually hadn't realised for so long that I had these trapped emotions and these
Mm-hmm.
limiting beliefs that were keeping me stuck, because I'm quite strong in some ways, and also that I thought that I could do it on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, I do have all the tools and techniques within me, just like you do, just like each of your listeners does. But often
Mm-hmm.
we need some guidance or some coaching or
Yep.
some support to really
Mm-hmm.
help, like break through and get to those
Mm-hmm.
deeper levels and work out what's going on for you. Because you've also
Yeah.
worked with practitioners, haven't you, John?
Yes, absolutely. I don't know a single coach out there in any respect, whether it is a health and fitness coach, whether it's a business coach, whatever it is. You will not find a coach out there that hasn't worked with a coach. It's just that
Yeah.
simple, because we know the value of it. I didn't throughout
Me
throughout
too.
my yeah, throughout my health and fitness journey, I didn't getting to the point where I was healthy and off diabetic medicine and all that stuff. I didn't work with a coach. But I don't know. I'm a weird person. I'm one of those people that if I decide something's going to happen, it's going to happen, and that's the end of it. It's like I smoked for 30 years, and I told myself, you know what? I'm done with smoking. And I went on Chantix, was supposed to take it for 6 weeks. And after a week, I threw the medicine and the cigarettes away and never looked back. I quit drinking alcohol 30 years ago because I didn't like how it made me feel. And no matter how much the environment that I was in, there was a lot of social pressure. All the people that I hung out with drank all the time. I was like, no, that's not for me anymore. And I just left it alone. People talk about willpower all the time. And I guess willpower has its place. But the fact of the matter is, no matter what it is that you're trying to do, you need to just make your mind up. You need to make your mind up, and you need to tell yourself, okay, I'm at point A. I need to be at point B. What do I have to do to get there? And then make it happen.
And sometimes, and that's great. It's a really good point. It's something that I often use with my clients as well, and say, you're at point A, you want to be at point B, and how is it that you get there? Is it something that you can do on your own? Is it something that you need, guidance and support with some of those steps to get you started on that like mountain climbing journey, so you can get to the top of that hill? And ultimately, it's about empowering people. So, we've spoken about like 2 really basic, simple tools and techniques that people can use for themselves.
Yes.
And there's so many ways about it. But one thing that I also wanted to mention, John, and something that you mentioned just now, is that, you have to make that decision. And that decision is pivotal. And a lot of people are stuck in trauma. They're stuck in that fight, flight, freeze mode. There might be post-traumatic stress or some type of trauma that's actually keeping them stuck. And they're struggling with that motivation. They are feeling stuck. And so, trauma-related work and the nervous system work really shows that sometimes the experiences that people have can actually be holding them back. And so sometimes the mindset alone, they need help and support to release some of that trauma so they continue with that positive mindset, because it's not just it's not always the positive mindset. I come across people who really do want to be well, but they've tried so many things. I had a client who 15 years worth of depression and anxiety and tried all of these things, and then got to the stage where she started work with me and said, I don't believe this is going to work. I mean, there was a part of her that believed, because she started working with me. And it was interesting. We did a lot of the tapping and the NLP work, because almost every session her body would say, I don't believe this is working. And even though every session, her stress levels were going down and things were changing and shifting in her life, there was this part of her subconscious or her body saying, no, I don't believe it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's really important to note too, and I think I've talked about this in another episode. One other thing that I do too on the weekends is I work with an organization that provides direct support to people with handicaps, both mental and physical. And one of the things that I've learned in my training as I've gone through, the process of starting to work with them is that stuff can happen to you in your childhood that you don't even realize anymore, and it can be affecting you. I actually read a study that was done on the ACEs test. There's 10 different questions that you answer, and typically if you score where you answered yes to 4 or more questions, they consider you as being affected by some sort of childhood trauma. And I found it really interesting with this study that I read that 75% of people that are obese score 4 or higher on the ACEs test. So it kind of makes you wonder, as far as from a health and fitness standpoint, how many things are we dealing with that are undealt with emotions and whatever from early on in our development that are causing us problems now. And to your point, that's where it comes in. It's working with someone that's an expert in their field that knows ways to help you get down to the bottom of what it is that actually is, causing issues for you. It's so valuable. It's just crazy.
Yeah, and like you said, it's getting to the root cause, because
Mm-hmm.
with a lot of stress and anxiety, and diabetes, then
Mm-hmm.
medications are really a band-aid. They can be helpful and
Yes.
necessary for some people. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
anti-medications, but it's
Right.
about what is the root cause. With
Mm-hmm.
diabetes, so much of it is nutritional based. You change your nutrition, it's fueling
Mm-hmm.
the body, you don't have those symptoms anymore. And then you
Right.
said, and then a lot of people will get to the stage where they know about what foods that they need to eat, but they're not making
Mm-hmm.
those nutritional choices. And it's
Right.
it's looking at, as you said, those underlying causes of why are they not making those nutritional choices. So I started
Yeah.
out as a nutritionist and a coach, and then I
Right.
realized it's not about the nutrition. Well, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the nutrition, as I said, the nutrition is a part, but
Yeah.
what's holding people back
Right.
is really the underlying reasons and emotions that they're binge eating or they're not eating the right things. That could go all the way back
Absolutely.
to childhood.
Yep. And exactly, and so much of it is their surroundings too. It's like I ask one of the questions that I ask all of the clients that I have when they first starting working with me is I ask them how much support do you have at home. Is your significant other or your kids, are they on board with the fact that you may have to start keeping certain types of foods out of the house because you realize that you have a weakness in this area, and in order for you to be strong and continue to work towards your goals, you need to make sure that's not in the house. Are they on board with that, or are they like, well, I'm not on a diet, you are, so you do what you need to do, and we're going to continue to eat the way we are. So many of those things play a factor in what's going on. We could sit here and we could literally talk for hours about all the little things that can affect your well-being as a whole. And when I say well-being, I mean everything. I mean mind, body, spirit, the whole works. Because I started off my journey in this business as a nutritionist and a personal trainer, but I have come to realize in the last year that it is so much more than just that. It really is, and there are
Mhm.
so many things that are connected, and there are so many things that people can try that it may not work for you. It may work for it's just like a nutrition protocol. There is no one best diet. You need to
Mm.
find the nutrition protocol that works for you, because what works for me might not work for you. It's the
Mm.
same thing with your mindset and how you deal with stress and anxiety and being overwhelmed and all these things. It's all directly connected.
Mm. Absolutely, it's directly connected, and people don't have to be stuck in those stories and those experiences.
No, absolutely. You
Uh,
you can change your story.
Yeah, absolutely. And so,
Yep,
we've
for
been talking
sure.
about there are different ways to change those stories. And again, like you said, we talk
Hmm.
about that childhood experience, or even later in life, um, you know, um, death of family members, or experiencing something traumatic, a car accident. These
Hmm.
things can put people into that fight, flight, freeze mode, into that stress response that then creates that
Hmm.
inflammation in the body, and they're in a loop, and that loop is in their mind and in their body, and they don't know how to get out of it.
Yep. Yep. You're absolutely right. Okay. Before we wrap things up, do you have anything else that you want to talk about that we haven't already touched on? And then I've got one final question that I want to ask you.
Ooh. um I just want to give hope to all the listeners,
Hmm.
because I've been in a whole heap of chaos, chronic illness, all the symptoms associated with it. I wasn't able to
Right.
work for at least 5 years, and I didn't think that I could get out. But keep looking for tools and techniques, keep looking for practitioners, and don't feel that you
Hmm.
need to do it on your own. There is absolutely no judgment about where you're at and what you're experiencing. And you can go from that state of chaos to clarity. And whether that be, emotional, mental, physical, there's so much hope out there and so much potential for you
Yeah.
to find that clarity and that wellness.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know, I look at it like this, and I tell people this story all the time, or this, I don't know what you want to call it. But, you know, it's like so many people are like, well, you know, I can't afford to work with a coach. You know, it's just so expensive. I tell people in most cases, if an individual comes to me and they need help with nutrition, but they're like, I can't afford what you charge a month to work with you. If they go to Starbucks every day, all they have to do is cut out that one cup of coffee at Starbucks every day, and they can afford me. And they won't be drinking all that sugary stuff in the process. They'll actually be getting healthier stuff, and they'll be getting the help that they need. And it's the same thing with someone like you or anybody else who's out there that is you know, sharing their expertise to try to improve the quality of your life. You can't put a price on the quality of life in my book. You just can't do it. You know, it's like when you buy a house. A house is an investment. Well, you know what? When you're hiring a coach, that's an investment in you.
Yeah, it's sometimes it's the phrase you can't afford not to. It's like I can't afford a coach, but you can't afford not to have a coach because. And I used to be one of those people, as you mentioned earlier in yourself, John, that you were like, coaches? I don't need to coach. I was one of those for such a long time. And now it's almost like an addiction, but it's a beautiful addiction because it's so empowering and it's so rewarding. And they're able to help get you from your A to your B so much quicker than what you could do on your own. And they've got professional experience. They work with clients. They've got a number of modalities in their toolkit. Whereas, and that can help you get out of your own way because often, you know, we talk about, you know, some of those limiting beliefs and some of those thoughts and some of those emotions that are keeping us stuck. They can help you release them, but they can help you get out of your own way so that you can move forward. This is their specialty.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you look, most, I won't say all, but most coaches in just about any field where there's coaching available, most of them are coaches because they've walked the walk. They've been there. They've done it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I became a coach because I was a 400-pound out of control diabetic that almost died, and I improved my life, and now I want to pay that forward and help others. So that's why I became a coach. You became a coach in doing what you do because you lived it. You use these techniques to help you get through, you know, your trials and whatnot. And so many other people are the same way. Now, there are plenty of coaches out there that have just gone online, taken a test, and got a certificate. Yeah. And, you know, be mindful, do your due diligence on people. But, yeah, you can't replace a quality coach without a doubt. Okay, my final question. Are you ready?
Right. I don't know.
Well, sometimes I give it. It just depends on the person, and I kind of get a feel. It's why I always do like a pre-episode interview, so to speak. Sometimes I give people a heads up about this question, and then others I just give it to them because I want the organic answer. Here it is. If you could affect one thing about health and fitness on a global level, meaning one thing that you did, instituted, said, whatever, would change something about health and fitness on a global level, what would it be?
What would it be? It would be to empower people with this little tip, this little EFT emotional freedom tapping tip, because it literally is something that is so small. You can do it with your own hands, like on your collarbone or on your karate chop point, and that itself can literally change your life. So
That's
it
awesome.
might sound really simple, but it is so powerful.
You know what? Like I said, after we went through the whole thing and then we went back and you were guiding me through that, I did. I was like so relaxed. So I can only imagine. And, you know, I know just as well as anybody the effects of what, you know, undue stress and anxiety and all that does for the body, without a doubt. Okay. So before I let you go real quick, let everybody know where they can find you on social media, websites, whatever.
Awesome. Thank you, John. For those who would like to reach out, then you can find me on my website, which is lisagumieniuk.com, my Facebook group, which is Chaos to Clarity Reset, Facebook page and Instagram, which is Lisa Gumieniuk Coach. So yeah, a few different places for you to reach out if you want to connect further.
Absolutely. And I'll be sure to put all those in the show notes too. Lisa, thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been absolutely amazing. I have loved this episode. And I'm going to join your Facebook group, and I'm going to be following along and enjoying all the content you put out there for sure.
Thanks so much, John. It's been amazing to chat with you. The work that you're doing is so necessary and spreading to so many people. And it's just wonderful that you've got this passion, this inspiration, and providing hope for so many people. And thank you for having me on the show. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, sit tight 1 second. I'm going to wrap this up, then I'll be right back to have some parting words with you. Okay, guys, I know you got a lot of value out of this video. Lisa is absolutely amazing. I love the work that she's doing. Be sure to follow her Facebook page, go to her website, hire her if you need some help dealing with your stress and anxiety and all that stuff. This was amazing. If you liked what was going on here, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell. That way you get notified when new episodes of the podcast drop. Until I see you again, you know my motto, playtime's over. It's time to get to work.